everyone. Welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today, I have the honor to learn from Mary Beth Robinson. Mary is the founder of Superpower Incorporated, which aims to help people find their superpower. Mary believes that everyone has their own superpower, and once someone discovers it, applies it, their superpower can experience new opportunities that they can't even imagine. Mary, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you taking the time to come on to my show. But this is something I'm like starting out with, and it's what got you drawn to that in the first place. That's not typically something people may do. So what got you started there?
Right. It's definitely not what people would do. I believe that our superpowers are something that we're like, it's embedded in our DNA, like it is who we are. It is what our purpose is. We've got all the tools. Because when people say, oh, what are you good at? And I could see for me, I'm great at organization. I'm great at, being really flexible with figuring out how to get things done. I'm very, those kinds of things. Those are great. But that's not my purpose in life. Those are the tools I have, and really good communication. I try to make people feel I don't even try. I love people. So they usually feel pretty comfortable with me. So it's, those are my tools, but my purpose is to, and it took me a while to figure out, and I'll tell you a story in just a second of when I was 11, when I had the first hit, okay, 11. This is who I am. But I know that's kind of early, right? I feel like, but we all have it. We all have this. We all have a drive to, I'd say, help other people, to make a difference, to make this a better place, and not only that, but to express our true selves. So when I was 11, and I'm 53, almost 53 now, like in 2 weeks. And so the movie Chariots of Fire came out. And my grandmother, who lived in Dallas, we went to this beautiful old theater in Dallas and watched this movie. And she's like, okay, we have to see it. So, and it's kind of like not really a kid's movie, but I loved it. And it was, it was just incredible. But there was a guy it's based on a true story. And there was a man in the Olympics in the 20s. I should know this better, but his name was Eric Liddell. And he was from Scotland, and he was a very religious man and spiritual, and he would not run on Sundays. And the movie was about these Olympic runners. And there were two people that the movie was about, and he was one of them. And he said, I believe that God made me for China, because he was a Christian missionary in China. But he said, God also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And I just started bawling. Wow. When I was I was just like, oh, because it spoke to something within me that was so true. It's like when we do our superpower, we have this feeling that's like goosebumps all over us. We know it's the truth. We know it's us. And it's always right there, wanting to be expressed, always. And when we do express it, it's like I can feel God's pleasure when I'm doing what I'm designed to do.
I agree. I think that's so cool. I mean, that's kind of the point of this show that I do too. It's, I want to show hey, this is what makes people unique.
Yes, exactly.
And I think kind of to your point, I think everyone has those talents, strengths, superpower that makes them who they are and what they're good at. And society as a whole needs that, right? They need that certain thing that makes them good at what they do. And I mean, this is kind of a question I have now. A lot of people, especially, so to kind of date myself, I'm 20, and a lot of these kids are just trying to figure out what the heck they're good at.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them?
That is the best question ever. It is such a great question, Josh, because here's something that's key, and is that a superpower does not ever sound amazing. So don't expect it to be like, oh my gosh. My superpower is I know other people's superpowers. That's it. Yeah. And I could spend the rest of my life teaching people about this and going in and, basically I kind of unzip people. I take out all the amazing stuff and I'm like, here it is for you to look at. And I could do that the rest of my life and be completely inspired, fulfilled, happy, wake up in the morning saying, how can I do this better? How can I do this for more people? How can I make more of an impact? That's it. So you don't, we live in a world of extremes. Like we see such extreme things on social media and everything. And your generation is really the first to like just grow up with that and to be like, oh my gosh, what do we do with that? And we're not, we are not neurologically designed to see all that stuff. So I think it's important to realize that by just being me, each of us has a world-changing superpower within us. And even if your world is like the 5 people around you, if that affects those 5 people in an amazing way, that has this ripple effect. So one time I was watching the Oprah Winfrey show, and it was like when she was finishing her show, her show on regular TV, and she was interviewing Iyanla Vanzant. And in that interview, I could tell she was digging and digging and digging for the truth. And Josh, this is similar to what you do. So we'll get into that. And when she finally got it, she's like, oh, I get it. So for me, now I've never worked with Oprah yet. I do see that happening.
Is that a goal for you?
Oh, absolutely. And, but according to me, her superpower is that she digs for the truth and shares it with everybody she can. Done. Now, if you're like a 20-year-old and your superpower is I dig for the truth and I share it with as many people as I can, you're going to be like, it's not that great. You know what I mean? But when you see it in action, Oprah was, those talk show hosts, like, I'm dating myself now, but Phil Donahue and Oprah Winfrey, they started talking about issues that nobody talked about when I was young. It was like amazing. They have changed the world by just talking about what's happening and the things that people are uncomfortable talking about. And it has made like your generation much more willing to talk about like mental health issues. No one talked about mental health issues when I was a kid. And my experience, I have an 18-year-old. So my experience with my kid and all of their friends is that they talk about mental health issues. It's not like this horrible stigma. And it's not just that. You all talk about a lot in my experience.
Yeah.
You're much more open. So Oprah was one of the people who started that. And to realize they have changed the conversation of the world, that's how powerful a superpower can be. Just don't expect it to sound amazing, because it doesn't. Like Oprah Winfrey is this like, very accomplished, I can't even think of the word, but influential. She's very influential. And you would not think that by just hearing her superpower. So especially for people in your age, you have greatness within you. And don't worry about all those extreme people you see on the media. Like they're the skinniest, they're the strongest, they're the most beautiful, they have the biggest lips, whatever that is. I watched part of the Grammys the other day and I'm like, is this a fight to see who can be the most extreme? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know exactly.
Like, wow, okay.
I think it's also like where you find that people also look at the result as well, right? They're too concerned with the result of things. It's like, oh, they're very influential. I want that. I'm like, yeah, but there's steps you have to take to be able to get to that point. You have to actually, I like to say there's a process oriented mindset and a result oriented mindset, right? And a process oriented mindset that will, if you're in that kind of mindset, you're more worried about like, how can I refine myself so then I can do whatever. Whereas if you're more focused on the result, it's like, how can I be more influential? How can I get as many people to see what I'm doing? When you're so concerned about that, you don't actually improve yourself as well. And ultimately, that's kind of how you become more influential, in my opinion. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Because when we really look at who we are, like, so Josh, if you don't mind me, okay,
Go ahead.
You're on the hot seat.
Oh,
But don't worry, nothing I ever say is like negative. It's all like positive. And it's funny because we are so comfortable with people like being critical than
Yeah.
we are like when we say, wow, here's what's like totally amazing. So for you, you do similar to Oprah. You are like, I want to know what's deep down in there. I really, you're always like, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? What's underneath that? And you love, and this is going to sound so funny, you love to bathe in truth. You're like, I want to get down in there and I want to like play in it and I want to talk about it. And that's how you've always been. Like you're not somebody who's like has these cool like hey bro conversations. You probably do sometimes,
yeah.
but your conversations are real. Okay, and just so you know, I don't know Josh at all, and specifically, I have not watched any of your podcasts because I always want to wait and give you my impression without any other, without anything bothering me. Exactly. Yeah. Because my brain will get in the way. But, the other thing that you really want to do is you don't want to do it by yourself. You want to do it with people. Like, it's all about, like, you're one of the things that's super unique about you is that you're like, it's so cute. I love this. This is so sweet about you and so wonderful. You're like, hey, let's all do this together. You attract people who want to have these conversations, and you have close friends, and you make really, your friends are like, these people who you're like, we'll be friends forever. Whether we don't talk for 5 years or not, we're going to be friends forever. And you're like, let's all go up. There are some people who are like, I want to get to the truth. I want to write about it. Or I want to have that inform my singing or whatever. Yours is, let's do it together. And yours is more, and this is so cool because I'm just getting this as we're talking. It's really your generation. You're like, I want my generation. My generation has some great stuff. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? And so don't ever apologize for working with people who are in your generation. Don't ever feel like, oh gosh, all these adults and I've got to do this. No, you talk to your generation.
Wow. And that was oddly specific, I have to say. That was really good. How'd you do that?
You know what? Here's the thing. Could you imagine a girl like growing up in rural Oklahoma who's all, I know things about people? Fortunately, I had like people in my family and my parents' friends my parents had just incredible friends. And the place I grew up was in Ponca City, Oklahoma, which is such a special place. So I had enough like kind of support, but I never would say, hi, I just tune in with people and I know good things about them,
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what I've had my whole life. And I just know. And so when I work with people, the less I know about them, the better. Because then I can see their essence. There's this great story about, like it's in ancient China where this emperor says, I want the best horse there is, the best war horse there is. Mm-hmm. And his horseman says, I can't do this for you, but I know a guy who can. So he went to this like poverty-stricken, like, dirt farmer. And he's like, I know you can see the essence of a horse. I want you to go out and find the emperor, the best war horse. So he comes back and he says, I found this horse and it's a black stallion and it is amazing. The emperor gets there and it's this yellow mare. And the horseman is like, oh, this man is so good that he sees the essence of this horse and he doesn't even see what it looks like. He sees the essence. And sure enough, when the emperor worked with the horse, it was the best horse and the best war horse that he could ever imagine. So I feel like that's what I do is like, no matter what you look like, Josh, where you're from, whatever, I want to know your essence. And your essence is my generation is powerful. We can do this. And I don't want nobody left behind. Like, let's do it. So when you kind of poo poo yourself, like, oh, I'm not so great because you may not look like, and I'm going to say adults because, like I'm saying that in a stodgy kind of old kind of way. Okay. Because you're an adult, but you're a fresh adult, like, and don't try to do things like the stodgy old adults do. Don't get caught in that trap. You do your new fresh thing. Your generation knows things that we do not, and you relate to the world in a way that we don't. Like I had my kiddo when I was 34, and that smartphones were just coming out, right? Like, and I was like, smartphones, that seems stupid. And those are really expensive. And why would,
Yeah.
And now it's like,
You have to have one.
like everyone has a smartphone. So, which changes the world. But so for you, I would say don't invalidate yourself because you're young. And don't let anybody put your generation down. Your generation is amazing. Amazing. And you all can do it. And you know that you can do it. And you gather people around you and you're already doing it. Never apologize for your age and for being in your generation. You speak to your generation. There will be other people who want to hear what you have to say, absolutely. But that is your gift. You speak to them.
Thank you. Wow.
You're welcome.
That's a lot to kind of digest there. And
it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lot, right? Because it's kind of like how often does somebody like get in there and say, listen, here's what you are, like it's amazing. You're not, the yellow mare, you're the black stallion, right?
Exactly.
Like, here's what you are.
I mean, what really drew, like, to make it like that, you're not just like speaking in general terms. What really drew me was when you're talking about our generation. I'm like, I've actually talked about that so much when I'm like, look, our generation has so much information. All we need to do is do something with that information. And that's kind of my, like, I want to get it out there. Like, look, guys, we have everything we could ever want. Like, let's go do something. Like all the work's been done. We just need to go out and actually do something. And
I love it.
That's kind of what, when you were talking, that's kind of what I was thinking about. I realized that, like, man, you didn't just make that up. That's crazy.
You know what? Right. And it's so interesting because people are like, well, how did you know all that? And, when I work with clients, I'm like, I just need a first name. Just please don't tell me anything. They're like, do you need to know what I want to work on? I'm like, no, because I already know. It's all good. It's fine. I'll figure it out. And it's fun that way because I get to, like, every day I get to hang out with people's essence, which is just amazing. Like to hear you as, the voice of your generation saying, yeah, in certain ways we inherited some bad stuff.
Yeah.
But in that same way, it's taken me, like until I'm 53 to start talking about some of the things that you all, because we just powered through. We're like, yeah, it's awful. Okay. We're just going to strap that on our backs and we're going to keep going. But why not look at it and see, okay, like you said, you've got access to so many experts and so many people who are talking about real things. Think of what you can do. Exactly. I mean, your generation is not, every time, just so you know, I'm in your corner because every time somebody says something about your generation, I'm like, wait just a minute. I know people from this generation and they're pretty amazing, So I am excited for you to gather people together and say, what can we do?
So this is kind of right on that note. I think we have, that information we're kind of realizing, hey, we have a lot that we just grew up with.
Yeah.
The hard part is actually taking that step to actually do something. What is like and apply it? What would you recommend actually making it a reality?
This goes back to our superpower doesn't sound amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each of us, it's like we have so much power in us. We're like this like atomic bomb, but in a good way, like of creation. Like we have a drive to do it. And it's always there. What you're doing can harness that creativity. All you have to do, now this is super important for you specifically, because you're like a catalyst. You're the one who is like, let's dig down here, let's find it, and then let's like talk about it. And then people will be like, oh, I got that. And they're off to the races.
Mm-hmm.
You just light that candle within them. You be like Chariots of Fire was for me, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you are. And you don't have to do all the work. You don't have to figure it out for anybody. Everybody's got that. Everybody's got that genius. And when it's ignited, they're like, I got this. Like nobody knows this better than me. I'm going to go do this. And so providing a space for people to know that about themselves is your bag. You speak the possibility, you keep digging, and all those little bombs will go off, and they'll be off doing their thing. And pretty soon your generation is like doing unbelievable things. So you're the one who's, you look out at a crowd and you're like, there are a couple of people who are like kind of floating above the cloud, and you're like, okay, you. Bing, there you go. Okay, now they're off. And then others will run, like that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. So it's like I find other people's strengths almost, kind of. And then like, or almost like ignite, like help them have that self-awareness of like, hey, this is what you're good at, man. Like you should go do this instead.
And I would say for you specifically, truth sets off a chain reaction. So you don't have to tell people who they are unless you know, and then do it. Mm-hmm. But when you uncover truth, I don't care what that truth is. When people hear truth, their truth comes to the fore. It comes up for them. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like if you crack an egg and it gets in and this part of the shell gets in your egg, you go get it with the other part of the shell. The shell attracts the shell. If you do it with your fingers, you're never going to get it. But if you do it with the shell, you're going to get it. That's like the truth. The truth attracts the truth. So when you uncover that deep, deep, deep truth, even if it's just a nanosecond of it, truth is so powerful that people will get in touch with their truth without you even talking about their truth. You, by speaking the truth, discovering the truth, digging for the truth, and sharing it with your generation, they get in touch with their truth. So you don't have to, you have a very simple job. And it's something you want to do anyway.
Yeah.
And remember this, you do not need to have the answers. Because that will stop you, right? Because you're like, I need to provide all this stuff. No, you don't. That is not your job. Everyone has their job. Your job is to speak and uncover and experience truth with other people, like you're doing on your podcast. And when you do that, other people will be like, out of the blue, there will be like, I've always wanted to write that book, or I've always wanted to be a powerful speaker in my church. Or, I feel like I'm a good example on my basketball team,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever it is for them, they're going to know. You don't have to know. My job is to look at what's really special in people and speak it. That's my job. Yeah. Your job is truth. Your job is truth and having that conversation for truth with other people and sharing that. It's not just your truth. It's like the discovery of truth within your conversations and your relationships.
I like that. And so this is kind of like something that I was thinking of as you were talking. I actually reminded me of a test that I took a while back. And it was like for professional setting, like, hey, these are your strengths in a professional
Yeah.
setting. And on the end of, hey, you, like, literally it says, you ignite people to action, you ignite. And I'm like, oh, you just said that. But one of the traits that it had in this test that it did was competitiveness. And this is where I'm a little bit more hesitant. I'm a really competitive person. I like to win.
Yeah.
And especially where, I mean, and this is, I like that you kind of put the warning of, hey, I don't always need to have the answer, but that's kind of what pushes me forward at the same time, that competitiveness, because it's like, oh, I need to know type of thing. Like I need to find out.
You do. Absolutely. But like just to know makes less of a difference than to discover and to have people be part of the discovery experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Like you aren't the guy with the answers. You don't want to be the guy with the answers because really answers make no difference.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a difference is you have this drive. You are competitive. You're like, nobody is going to stand in my way. I will find a way.
Yeah.
But that's how you are with your truth, with discovering truth. It's not like you're like, I've got to have the answers and I've got to do this. You do have a great drive, and never apologize for that. But your drive is like, this doesn't seem right. Like this doesn't make sense to me. There's nothing there. Like I can't get behind something that there's nothing there for. Like having watched Jimmy Valvano coach and, in the 80s for North Carolina State, those kids loved him and he loved them. Like that relationship was really there. Instead of like a coach who sits back. By the way, Josh and I have a shared love for basketball. We discovered, right before we started recording. But, a coach who's kind of just like, no, whatever. It's like, it could be better. It could be better. And you're always like, it can be better. It can be better. This can be more real. This can be more impactful. This can be more true. And that is what you are driven for. Certainly, if you're working with somebody and you want to find out who they are, you will get there. But it's all in service. Remember, your overarching thing is we discover the truth and the truth ignites more truth.
Gotcha. Yeah. Again, it's a lot to digest there. And this word that keeps coming up is truth. I'm going to use this as the intelligent question of the day, but what is that is kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at.
You know what? That is like the question of the ages, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think with truth, we know it when we speak it. We know it when we see it. There's a basketball coach who used to coach for West Virginia, and he went to West Virginia, and one of his players got hurt. And you could tell it was like an injury that was like, could be career ending.
Yeah.
And he literally got down on the floor with his player who's like, I think it was a knee injury. And you know how bad knee injuries,
Yeah.
If you've ever had one, your knee is never the same after you have that. And he got down on the floor and he took his head in his hands and he just whispered to this kid, like a father would.
Mm-hmm.
That's truth. Like it was so moving to see how much he cared about this kid and how much he knew. He was like, this is bad. This is so bad. Mm-hmm. And I am here for this kid. And I've got goosebumps just saying that story. And it's not something that we necessarily say. That's why poets are so amazing. They capture truth within this like realm of words, but it's not the words. It's like all the stuff that's encompassed in them. Mm-hmm. And they can express truth. But truth is this elusive thing that you dig down deep to and you get to and you just enjoy for a bit. But you've unleashed it. It's kind of like I saw a meme forever ago, and it's one of my favorite ones, and it says, the truth is like a lion. It'll go out and defend itself. Like the truth has a mind of its own. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
go out and that truth is going to make a difference. So I don't know what truth is. I just know it when I see it. And you know it when you feel it because you're always like, where is it? Where
Yeah.
is it? Where is that? Where is that feeling of, oh, we just experienced something that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
A little bit on that too. I think kind of that again on that drive of just not even myself, but other people that they may have in themselves. That pursuit, right, of truth, right? That pursuit of whatever it may be. That is ultimately what drives us to kind of manifest what we actually like our superpowers in.
Yeah.
Because right, we realize, right, once we do it, once we use that superpower that hey, like I like this. This is something I'm good at. And
Right. Exactly.
then
Exactly.
it's almost like I mean, it's probably a terrible analogy, but like those dopamine hits you said, it's like, oh, well, I got a hit. Let's do it again. Right. Cause you like it so much and
Right.
and you
Right.
keep going and you keep going. I mean, that was a terrible analogy. Like I'm not saying drugs are
No.
good,
No,
but
but the experience of truth is like that.
mhm,
It's like we know it in our bones. It's like, oh, and once we get that, we're like, I want to do more of that. And invariably, that's the expression of our superpower.
hmm, I like
Like
that.
when I see somebody, I'm like, oh, this feels so good. Like I can feel it down to my toes, and it not only feels good, but it feels right. And when I share it with other people, I can tell it feels right for them. And so it is kind of like that incredible state of grace,
Hmm.
that is kind of illusory. And we're like, wow, that was amazing. I'd really just kind of like to live there.
Hmm.
And for people who are really doing their superpower, that is what they get to experience more and more because they're doing it consciously. We're always doing it unconsciously. Like, Josh, your relationships with people are, like I said before, you have real conversations, like you have real relationships. You talk about things, you experience things. You're like, that truth comes up in your
Hmm.
relationships. So you're doing it all the time anyway, but when we do it consciously and we give ourselves a chance to do it, like your podcast, that's exactly, you could do a podcast where you just talk.
That would be interesting.
Right. Exactly. You wouldn't even consider it because you're like, the truth happens with the relationship between people. Your search for truth is so specific in that it has to do with that connection between people. And that's where it happens. So anytime you have that opportunity to deal with people in a real way, that's what arises.
Hmm.
And that's your secret sauce because it always happens in relationship with other people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a little lost for words there. And one last question, then we'll get your
Yeah.
information. So, right, we've discovered superpowers here, but maybe like outside of myself, someone else, how would they find maybe a career that kind of aligns with that superpower then?
That is a great question. And sometimes in life, we kind of just stumble into, what we do for a living. We can always do our superpower where we are. But there are other people, like for me, I'm like, well, there's not really a superpower job.
Hmm.
And so I had to kind of like just create what I do out of nothing. And so some people have a very specific superpower, and that kind of translates to doing your entrepreneur stuff. And if so, then get help from other entrepreneurs in how to set up everything, which is plentiful. But, for your generation, look at the one thing you wouldn't give up about yourself. Like for me, I'm a great organizer. Would I want to organize for a living? No. Would I want to tune in with people and talk to them? Yes. Like that's something I would not give up. Like my ability to tune in and and it's not enough for me to tune in because if my work meant nothing, I wouldn't want to do it. So it has to be that I tune in with people and I express effectively who people are and the possibility they are in a way that makes a difference for them. So look at the tool you have that you would never give up, and then that's the one that you want to somehow incorporate into your, create a career around. And it could be that you end up being a counselor. It could be that you know, decide to be a corporate trainer, and so you get to talk with people and interact with people. And you do it in a particular way that they feel honored, and like they feel like, wow, that person really sees me, and I am so more clear about who I am than I ever have been, because I just talked to Josh, and I don't know what kind of magic happened there, but somehow I got really inspired to really be myself and to do what I know in my deep heart that I can do. I know I'm all over the place with this because it is not the easiest thing, but I have a lot of free content I'm putting out, and people can find me. I would look on Twitter. Do people in your age range get on Twitter? What do they get on?
Usually Instagram.
Instagram. Okay, then I'll start working on Instagram. But at the moment, I'm on Twitter at Superpower Queen.
Awesome.
Right.
And any other places they could find you? Like, what if they want to get training, or like they were blown away with this interview and they're like, I want that type of thing.
You know what? Here is I'm online. It's superpowerinc.org, and Superpower Inc. is also a power plant in New Jersey. So if you get the power plant in New Jersey, just put Superpower Inc. Mary Beth.
Awesome.
And then you'll find me, and you can opt into my newsletter. And what I do is I also do a lot of free work. Like I work on Twitter like every day doing free little mini readings for people about their superpower. So, download Twitter, get on, I'm a superpower queen. Actually, I can't even remember. Am I the superpower queen or superpower queen? This is so embarrassing.
Oh, no
I
worries.
can see a lot of stuff, but tech-wise, I'm a dinosaur. I am a 53-year-old dinosaur. It's just superpower queen. Okay, not the.
Awesome.
So just superpower queen. And I would be happy to do any kind of reading and write up for your listeners on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Absolutely. Josh, thanks for having me. And I love this platform, and I wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to do great.
Thank you. So everyone, as you can tell, that is Mary Beth Robinson. She's a very intelligent person, has great things to share. She dropped some information there if anything sparked your interest. And I would challenge you guys to go out and do that. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for you guys. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.